I saw someone mention that they knew dozens of nurses and doctors who has had different types of paranormal encounters. Thought it'd be neat to collect similar experiences in a thread. So did any medical professional in here had anything creepy happen on the clock? My mother-in-law worked in the NICU and ICU for many years. She has shared numerous odd and paranormal stories with us. One story that stuck out to me from the bunch took place during her last month working at that hospital. She had one particular patient whom she gravitated to. She was elderly and reminded her of her own mother. We'll call her Mary. She was brought in for a hemorrhagic stroke that could and should have easily killed her, but miraculously she survived it. She was not expected to wake up but did and slowly regained brain functions. During Mary's time in ICU, she and my mother-in-law hit it off and would talk about their life experiences. One thing they spoke about was their Scottish ancestry. Both her and my mother-in-law had Scottish ties. My mother-in-law had visited Scotland once back in her early teens and had been making plans to visit again. Mary traveled there many times and would give my mother-in-law suggestions on places to visit, eat, etc. Mary was awaiting a transfer from ICU to IMCU, meaning my mother-in-law would no longer be her nurse. A couple days before Mary's transfer, my mother-in-law went on vacation for her kids' spring break. She told Mary that she would visit her in IMCU upon her return if she hadn't been already discharged. The day Mary was set to be transferred to IMCU, she suffered another stroke which took her life. Mary's daughter called my mother-in-law to tell her of Mary's passing. They had also developed a friendship while at the hospital and are still friends to this day. My mother-in-law was heartbroken over the news, especially with the fact she wasn't there when it happened. A few days after her return to work, she experienced a couple occurrences that changed her whole perspective on the paranormal. A new patient had occupied the room Mary was in while at ICU. The new patient was an older man who was much less social than Mary. One day while my Emil was in the empty room next to his, she looked down and found a pin with the Scottish flag. She asked around and it belonged to no one on that floor. She thought it was interesting but brushed it off as a sweet coincidence. The next day, the man that was occupying Mary's room started frantically yelling, "This is not your room. Please leave, and I will tell her just leave me alone." My mother-in-law said that was uncharacteristic of that gentleman. Later that shift, once everyone had calmed down, my male was in the room alone with the man. He grabbed her wrist and said, "I have to tell you something." Mary said hello, but she has left. This blew my MIL away. She was in disbelief, crying happy tears the rest of her shift. This man had no connection whatsoever to Mary other than occupying the same room. He told her that he saw Mary a couple of times, but hadn't said anything to anyone. He even accurately detailed her appearance. Her visits became more frequent, and she spoke to him without moving her lips. The final time was rather aggressive, and the man finally replied back. He didn't see her again after that. He also passed away a couple days later. I've never worked in a hospital, but have been in my fair share of them through the years. If there were ever a place that could be haunted, it would be a place that more people die at than any other place I can think of. Nurse for 15 years here. I work in long-term care, so I see my fair share of deaths. More often than not, deaths are expected and proceed without anything paranormal or unusual. However, I have had multiple people who are close to passing who seemingly have one foot in this world and one in the next. Had a lady who was close to passing, who was seeing family members coming in, she'd say something like, "Oh, there's Aunt Gracie and Uncle John." She was completely lucid. Her daughter and I just went with the show. She had a peaceful death. Some others have seen people in the corners of their room. This one guy who was sick kept ringing his bell saying he saw a scary woman in white up in the corner of his room. We weren't able to calm him down, even with meds. Apparently, he cheated on his wife and had been a preacher. Other stuff like call bells going off in unoccupied rooms happens. I'm not a huge believer, but I don't know. I'm a CAT scan tech in a hospital, and I work the overnight shift. On my break, I used to find an empty exam room to take a nap. One evening while napping, I felt a hard tap on my shoulder and a voice saying to wake up. I immediately opened my eyes and I saw a small little old lady in the room with me. She looked Asian. I was so confused because I made sure I locked the door when I came inside. Then she started to slowly disappear in front of me, like into thin air. I was terrified but went back to sleep because I was exhausted. After my break was over, I went back to work. I told my coworker what I saw. To my surprise, he told me he's seen the same lady before too. Super creepy.